Hey, this is Sim.
This is Ian.
We're here to talk about the psychology behind professional development, and today's topic is scary bosses.
Yeah.
Ian, have you ever experienced scary bosses?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have to really go back and kind of rack my brain as to what a scary boss was. I think of like the movies and those TV shows as to how there's someone who's really just very, very just overpowering and micromanaging and just saying some really just awful things to you and just demeaning. And I really, for the life of me, maybe in the moment I thought there was a scary boss, but if I'm thinking back, I can't think of a lot of scary bosses. Honestly, I can't think of any scary bosses. I can think of scary times, but
Yeah.
it's hard to remember a scary boss. Fortunately,
Oh, that's great. No.
yeah. And I mean, I know many people who have not had as fortunate as myself.
Hmm.
But I know that, again, looking back, and now I'm years removed from maybe many of those scary situations. I don't
Yes.
remember a scary boss per se.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember certain moments where they were scary. I remember being asked if I liked what I was doing because I was going to get fired
Oh
or
my
I had to
God.
resign, one or the other. That was scary.
Yeah.
But, I think that when it's all said and done, I can think of times where if the person was scary, they probably might have had a what they thought was a good reason for it.
Mhm.
And this isn't to rationalize their behavior, but it's just to recognize where they were coming from. And maybe it was just
Right.
they were put in a bad spot where they had to be the heavy and they
Yeah.
had to be the messenger of not so good news. And what about yourself? I mean, I'm pretty sure you must have
Yeah.
had at least one possible in your lifetime there.
I did. I've had multiple scary
Oh,
bosses.
multiple. Okay.
Multiple. And the reasons that, like, I'm not going to name names or give
Yeah.
any timeline because that's not fair to anyone, but I've had multiple. And the one person that I recall and I really needed to step back is because they were throwing tantrums for no reason. And it was, scary situations happen where a deadline might be like really urgent and we're high stress. That is okay. Where people tend to lose their temper maybe once or twice in a longevity of a career. We've all probably been there at one point or time where, oh my gosh, I don't know how else to talk to this person to communicate to get this done at this urgency. But when I think about scary bosses, I think about patterns of their
Mm. Yeah.
qualities, their characteristics, right? And for me, this scary boss would throw tantrums on random times where it didn't really match the urgency or the
Mm.
importance of the task, of the project, of the timeline. It was just a way to, I think they believed that it was a motivational tool. Again, there's so many of us might have experienced that a heightened tone, aggressive, sharp, right, loud voices, things like that can be triggering. And needlessly yelling, like I said, throwing a tantrum, I identify as needless yelling, that can really harm the whole work environment. Not just the person that is experiencing it or the person that is actually throwing the tantrum, but also if we go 1 degree separation, right, their colleagues can also feel the
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah. Now you
Yeah.
said now if you mentioned that if there was a time where that person was doing it when it didn't call for it.
Mhm.
Were you more accepting because of that? Or are you just not accepting at all, even if the person was yelling at the wrong time versus yelling at the right time, so to speak?
Right. And so I think there's a level and space for compassion and
Right.
empathy. And this is why I talk about scary bosses not as scary situation, because if the situation would have subsided, then they would return to their natural character. And this is, over not like 2 week period, not 2 months, like over 6 months to a year to 2 years and multiple years period, where you just see the progression and the cycle isn't being broken. Right? Respectful communication isn't happening.
And I
Right.
wonder if scary bosses are more prevalent in today's workforce versus yesteryear's workforce. I mean, if if HR is more on top of things, if, for example, you have individuals who work for scary bosses. The
Mhm.
individual knows it's a scary boss. Does that individual say anything about the scary boss? Does the
Right.
individual say, I'm not dealing with the scary boss, I'm out of here? Does the individual just say, well, I'm just going to get used to it? This is who he or she is.
Mhm.
It's a job. I got to deal with it.
Right.
Whatever the results are, I'm getting paid X amount to deal
Mhm.
with this. Otherwise, if not, I'm getting paid zero. And so I'd rather get paid X amount versus getting paid zero. So
Right.
I guess it's a long question to original
No.
question of do you think now the scary bosses are more prevalent than before, or do you think it's kind of the same?
Yeah, I don't think it's more or less prevalent. I think employees are feeling more empowered to speak to power, right? I say this because I've had multiple clients from who are retiring. They were also talking about their scary bosses. So it's not a generational component.
Mhm.
It's just I never knew how to say that they're not being nice and they're not being compassionate, they're not being kind, they're just ordering me in a very
Right.
abusive way, abusive tone. And I just sucked it up and
Yep.
just kept going with it because my priorities were support my family, support this, support that. And it was normalized by my colleagues by saying, hey, this is just how we work. If you can't deal with it, then don't be here.
Right.
Right. There was a level
Right.
of shame, also blaming the victim of those that were receiving those criticisms,
Yeah.
unneeded criticisms, right? So, because I look at pop culture and the news and all the movement that has happened over the past decade, let's say, where there have been more people coming out and saying like, "I was treated unfairly," more and more.
And I wonder if that's more if that's and I guess there's different levels of I mean, we're kind of jokingly saying scary, but I
Yeah,
think that there's numerous levels of it. There's numerous,
absolutely.
I guess, areas of it, and there's
Hmm.
levels of seriousness of it. I mean, there are the occasional cases where a boss is great, but just something in the boss's personal life just they freaked out, they had a really bad day or a bad evening or just a bad life situation happen, right?
Absolutely.
And then there's the ones that you mentioned that there's a whole it's beyond scary. It's damaging,
Right.
it's encroachment, it's just being just and I'm not gonna say evil, but I'm gonna say that it's, you know, a level 2 levels above scary
Hmm.
and just defamation and harassing,
Yeah,
just I guess the best way to put it is unprofessional, at least.
absolutely. Absolutely. Like, one of the things that we taught, the reason we are using scary bosses isn't what you find scary might not be the same thing for me, right? And scary is my definition of what is scary to me,
Right.
right? Same as your definition. For example, I hate watching horror films because that will make sure that I don't sleep for at least 2, 3 days. I don't need that in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I love my
And then you ask one of my friends if they see like a clown or something, they're done. And I'm
yeah.
just like, it's a clown. The reason we're talking about scary bosses is because it's personally defined. To your point of, do we show compassion to those people that we identify as scary bosses when they are going through hardship? And I think it really depends at the degree, to your
Mm,
point, right? Of how scary are they for us, right? In typically we don't get scared of one-off situations. We can brush that off and say like, you know what? Okay, that was very intense.
right.
And I'm sure once they figure out what's happening, they'll come back and apologize, mend the situation, alleviate the tension, right? Which is one-offs, and we can always give a grace period to say like, okay. And this is where like I think you and I we're we're seeing it from two different sides, maybe
Yeah.
where when I see scary bosses, when I'm thinking about scary bosses, I'm thinking about a pattern of behavior. Again, going back to the psychology behind it, right? I'm I'm talking about a pattern of behavior that has not indicated any change for less scary or change where that will build that trust, build that empathy, and it goes both ways. And maybe I'm misunderstanding you. Maybe you're seeing it like scary situations happen, scary bosses can become scary.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
So I
I
don't know where
wonder.
we are.
Yeah, I wonder what is scarier. Is the scarier knowing that the boss is scary and you're kind of expecting it? Then maybe that dilutes it a little bit, or is it the boss who is quote unquote normal and then just out of the blue just goes on a tirade just for
Mhm.
no reason and then goes back to normal again. So which one would I mean, I would think and it would be the latter. Just because you don't expect certain things and that's what
Right.
makes them scary. Like if you're scared of something, it's usually because of an instantaneous reaction to something that you were expecting.
Yeah.
Versus if you know this boss is just out of its head
Mhm.
daily, then you're like, "Oh, I know what I'm walking into when on a Monday morning or
Yes.
when I get to the office."
You
I
know,
know this
the
person's just gonna just I don't know, pick some flowers or something and burn them in front of me or something like, "Oh, it must be a Tuesday." Or versus the someone who does that and is like, it's September 19th and they burn it and they pick a flower and they burn it just for no reason whatsoever. I would think that person is scarier, you
yeah.
know?
Right. So I think that's a wonderful example of how we define scary is so
Yeah.
subjective,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
For me, if I'm at a constant pressure, so for example, a micromanager,
Mm.
right? If I'm working with a micromanager who checks my work every 15 minutes, that constant pressure becomes scary because I
Okay.
have no autonomy, no freedom to be expressive, which is a core value of who I am and how I choose to operate professional, right? So for me, that would absolutely be more exhausting than if I see a nice boss, wonderful boss, burning some flowers or whatever that is in a pit of rage. I can say like, okay, I can separate myself a little bit more and say
Right.
they are going through something that I don't know anything about. Now, if they are burning my work,
Mm.
right, then I have an attachment to that. That's not right. That could
Yeah.
be one of the characteristic could be blame shifting. Are you familiar with this term?
Go ahead and explain it to me. Never first be taught on a daily basis. So
Right?
I think I can get the gist of the blame shifting, but coming from an
Exactly.
expert sounds better.
So it's essentially not taking responsibility for their selves and saying like, "Oh, it's Sim who did this," right?
Mm.
And I might not have any idea what was said or what was heard, but I get the um, responsibility of something that I didn't have awareness of. And at this point, I'm the person that is saying sorry for something that
Sorry.
was just passed along from that scary boss to me. This is a
Yeah.
characteristic where the scary boss does not want to take responsibility for the good or the bad. Sorry, let me rephrase that.
Mm.
Does not want to take responsibility for their team, but will take all the
Praise.
accolades, praise. Again, that's another characteristic. There's several characteristics. So let's maybe rewind a little bit, right? And talk about some of the characteristics that we find scary in a boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I
so,
think yeah,
yeah,
you mentioned it originally. I think the micromanaging is a really good start. I think maybe over micromanaging. Because
right.
there can be moments of micromanaging
Yeah.
if you're again, that's kind of hard to say because is your work performance bad because of micromanaging, or are you bad at your performance because you're being micromanaged? You know,
Right.
is there so maybe micromanaging is scary. I
Yes.
think just
So,
derogatory statements
oh,
is another
absolutely.
scary one for
Absolutely.
sure.
Right. Harassment,
Harassment.
lack of empathy. It's like,
Yep,
I don't care. You start work at X time. If you're not here, you're not doing anything.
that's a good one.
Manipulative behaviors
Mm,
using deceit for personal gain. So for example, not giving, let's say I come to my boss and I say like, "Hey, I need XY days off." All right? And instead of approving it, it's like you have to work XY days because I was thinking about having those same days off without having that open communication of, hey, we can negotiate something. That's a very basic example
yeah,
of it.
yeah. I would think so. I would think so. I think the one thing about scary bosses is
Hmm.
for me I've learned behavior over the years is people do things either I want to model or don't want to model, right?
Right.
And so if I have scary bosses or, just places you don't want to work at or fields you don't want to be in, then at least there's a bright side for a scary boss is you can say, down the road, I don't want to be that kind of boss. I've seen what a scary boss
Right.
can do for morale, for a team development aspect,
Mhm.
from performance based aspect, and just say, I don't want to be that person. I want to, I
Right.
want my team to grow. I want to retain a team,
Yes.
and seeing what a scary boss can do kills it. I don't want that to happen when I get into a field of a level of management that I have a larger team, or maybe I
Absolutely.
learn from this of the team I currently have. I'm like, oh my gosh, is this how I'm being portrayed, or is this what I'm doing? Is what the scary boss is doing?
Right.
So I think just modeling
There's
the behavior.
No, I think you hit on something so profound is when we are identifying who our models will be. Sometimes we have the luxury of selecting, I want to be this model or this model. Sometimes we don't have the luxury
Mm,
of recognizing what a good model is and what a bad model is. Toxic model,
right.
right? Scary. The reason I say this is because going through the background of psychology, where if you grew up in a high stress environment, professionally, personally, that may be a place of comfort for you.
Mm, okay.
And if there isn't that level of high pressure, then it becomes very uncomfortable. And one tries to create additional work and things like that to make it high pressure again. So they feel comfortable,
Okay.
right? So it really depends on where you are. At the same time, I like our lived experiences because we started by saying like you didn't really experience scary bosses, but I've had several scary bosses.
Hmm. Right.
So we're coming from two different
Right.
sides of this road,
Right. Right.
right? Where I'm thinking if the boss is scary, they're not going to advocate for me to get promoted
That's true.
because they will see that as a threat to them.
So how did you deal with the scary bosses though? I mean, you said you had a few of them.
Yeah,
Were there, I mean, I'm guessing, so you said that there were red flags that were there throughout the different positions that you held.
absolutely.
Did they in turn fast track you from leaving that place because that they were that scary? Or did you have to say, well, I have to get paid. I need to deal with this?
Right. And early career, yeah, early career, I was like, you
Mhm.
know what? I have to get paid. I have bills to pay. Right. And as I grew and learned more and more, I recognized the behaviors earlier so I can distance myself and I can have hard conversations with my bosses saying, like, hey, ABC that you're doing is not going to work well for me. We will
Conversations. So you confronted the boss.
absolutely. Did that help? Sometimes, sometimes no.
Hmm.
And when it didn't help, when it actually hurt, is then they were taking credit for my work. They were doing XYZ and essentially isolating me from my colleagues and so on. So
Hmm.
essentially made me a target. So I just had to leave that environment because I knew I was never going to grow.
Taking it one step
Yeah.
further, during the interviews, did you ever interview with the boss? Or you didn't know who the boss was until you got hired, and then day one, that's when you met the boss?
No. So interview tip, always interview with the boss. Always, always interview with the boss. Whoever your direct
Mhm.
supervisor will be, get even if it's 15 minutes, even if it's 5 minutes, get time on their book. If you can't get time, that says something. That is a flag that you need to figure out how you want to navigate. So for me, yes, I always had a chance to interview with my boss because I wanted to know who was the person that was going to be on my corner, in my corner. And if I aligned with, how do I say this? With their philosophies, right? How do they run the team? How do they manage a project? How do they create cohesion? How do they build a team? And so on. If I didn't know how they did this, then I couldn't really understand what type of environment I was entering. And I think this is so crucial, and we can cover more of this in a
Mhm.
different episode about interviewing. It's so crucial for us to interview our employers
Right.
as we are also being interviewed.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's a two-way street.
Yes.
So during the interview, I'm still fascinated with the interview thing. I don't know why. But with the interview, did you see any red flags that, looking back, maybe they weren't red flags? Or did you know at the time that they were red flags? You're like, you know what? Again, to your point, I got to get paid. I need to put my dues in. I just have
Right.
to deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, so yes, I
Mm.
personally, I can say I've seen some yellow flags. Nothing is a red
Yeah.
flag until it becomes a pattern for me,
Right. Right.
right? Now, some people I know, I've worked with two clients over the last year who mentioned like these yellow flags are just flags that are burning. That's why they're yellow. It's so severe
Right.
that is just horrible,
Hmm.
and we don't get to see them until, and again, coming with compassion, coming with empathy, that's the kind of person that I am and I want to be. I can always say they were having a bad day, it was exhausting, etc., etc. So
Right.
seeing those flags immediately, I can make an assumption of, okay, the culture is maybe at a 60%, 50% healthy, right? I
Mm.
go by
Right.
health. I like the health metrics of like 100% healthy is just
Right.
wow.
Right.
Right? When there is more than 4 or 5 yellow flags, I've had to decline offers just because I didn't trust the person that I was interviewing with, the employers that I was interviewing with, that they had a culture that I wanted.
Yeah.
It was right for me.
That's interesting because there is always this level of acceptance of, you know what you're going to, and
Mhm.
you're willing to confront the red flags accordingly and accept that this is how it's going to be. I go back to this a lot about, I need to get paid.
Right.
So therefore, you
Yes.
know, you're going to burn those flowers on Tuesday. All right, I'll bring the matches. It's
I mean, again, we're talking about multiple different levels.
yes,
If I need to get paid, that is one of the basic level of Maslow's hierarchy, and we can
right.
talk about this in another episode, right?
Yeah,
Because if we're not getting our basic needs met, it doesn't matter if it's scary or not. We will be there because, working in a unhealthy with an unhealthy boss still provides me safety and security, that I will have food, my myself, maybe my family, other people that depend on me have stability, right? That's a whole different level.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think
Because
that's to your point. Yeah,
yeah. Like to the earlier question you asked, worked for my payment when I was early career because I'm like, you know what? I got to pay my dues so I can get somewhere and have a better environment.
right. Yeah,
Right. But if I didn't have that financial burden, right, I would have switched jobs. I encourage everyone
yeah,
to switch jobs.
yeah.
If you
Absolutely.
find yourself in a toxic space,
Exactly.
with scary environments, scary bosses, switch your spot. 3 months, 2 weeks, it doesn't matter. You have to protect yourself first. And if that means I have to deal with this boss so I can have this type of life right now, that's a decision.
Yeah.
We can justify, we can rationalize, hey, I'm doing this for the greater good for me. This episode is sponsored by Balanced at Last, my coaching services. That's balanced at last.com. If you are curious about how I can help you, please schedule a free consultation call, a 20-minute call to assess your challenges and ways my services can help you. Mention you are a podcast listener and receive 20% off your coaching services. Offer valid for a limited time. Visit balancedatLast.com or scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description below. Thank you for listening. In the long term.
There's times probably where, again, back in the days, because this is what I have the experience in, this back in the day, is if you didn't, there are times where I would want to have changed jobs earlier. At the same time, though, you would have to question why. Is it the scary boss? Is it the job? Is it the environment, the culture, whatever? But ultimately, what it came down to is, in many occasions, was how to look on my resume.
Mhm.
If there was a scary boss in job one, I don't want to jump ship 3 weeks later and say, well, I had a scary boss. I can't be the scary boss. I would say, well, it would look bad on my resume if I went to from job one to job two within a month's time. Why is someone going to hire me 3 weeks in, 1 month, 2 months into a job? I'm already looking. This is bad.
Mm.
It looks bad on me. So I just have to deal with this situation. And I wonder now that with the environment that we're in, if it's looked at the same way as it was before. As we look,
It's not.
you know what, I totally get it. You're a month
Mhm.
in, you realize this isn't the way you want it because your boss is displaying these kind of behaviors. It's giving you a bad, it's just destroying your mental health. It's destroying who you are. This boss is living rent free in your head day in, day out,
Right.
and it's causing negative effect on your life. Yeah, by all means, jump ship ASAP and look for something else.
It's true. And I think how do I say this? Like with progression of job opportunities, that also shifted our mindset because a few years ago, we had people switching jobs every few months because they were just getting a better offer at a different
Right.
company. And that was sought after. It's like, wow, I forget what that term was called.
Yeah.
Job hopping, not job
Yeah.
hopping, but
Yes. Yeah. I have to look at it now and see what
I
that was
have to look it
called.
up. Again, then there was quiet quitting, right? Where you're not actually quitting, you're just doing the bare minimum
Right.
just to get by. All these things exist now that existed then, but in a different scope that a lot of people didn't have awareness of. To take your example of, hey, I just joined this job a month. You don't have to report that you had a job for that month. No one's going to
Mm,
check.
that's interesting. Yeah,
Right?
that's a
You
good
don't even
point.
have to say you've worked in a terrible place for 6 months. You don't have to say that. You can just say, "I've been in the job search," right? "I've been discovering things. I've been working on projects," whatever that is. But again, we have to rewind back to you gotta figure out what provides that safety and security, and then you can start figuring out, "Okay, this is a scary situation. What ways can I figure out how to escape this? How to mend this? How to improve this situation?"
Mhm.
Right? And once you've figured out what will work.
Recognizing what a scary boss is or what a scary environment is, it's cause for you to look inward to determine why it's scaring you. What is he or she doing to you in
Mhm.
a way that it's triggering you to react the way you do?
Yes.
And so maybe that, again, quasi silver lining is that maybe that will be like a transferable skill, so to speak, in the real world to say, okay, well, this person, I don't like the whole burning flowers thing. How come I don't like burning flowers? Because maybe when I was a kid,
Mhm.
I was walking down the sidewalk and the sun burned a flower accidentally, and and then, I don't know, the dog ran
Yeah.
away or something. I don't know what the cause and effect was on that. But the point
Right.
being is that now I understand why it affects me so much. It's not me,
Mhm.
it's the person. It's the person's action that's causing it on me.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. And this is where we want to be careful about scary bosses because we're putting ownership of by this title itself, we're putting ownership of the person, the leader, the boss, but the scary part is subjective to us and our experiences. And once as we start talking more about toxic leadership, which is the more
Yep.
consistent environmental factor, the personality factor, then it is not no longer our subjective interpretation, but is objectively a person, a situation that is not desirable, and you've tried to mend it as many times as possible. And it's a very complicated space, but I really appreciate how you went and talked about you have to identify what triggers you, and that way okay, this is scary for me because this is an environment that I'm not used to, that was
Right.
triggering before. And this is where career counselors can really help dig through some of that trauma to recognize, like, hey, the reason you are afraid of burning flowers is because ABC, but you're no longer in danger of that.
Right. Right.
Right.
And I think for myself, I know just kind of looking back, the biggest challenge I've had with certain leaders was I had a hard time with conflict. And so you take their behaviors, and since I couldn't say, well, I don't agree with this, you just kind of nod your head and move on.
Right.
Looking back, I'm like, I should have said something when this happened,
Hmm.
but I didn't
It's
because
scary.
yeah,
It's
exactly right.
scary. Yeah.
Case in point, you want your job, you feel that if you follow the direction, then, the person was right. Okay, cool. Person was right.
Hmm.
Conflict resolved and you move on. So there's no more scary
Yeah.
because you did what the boss wanted you to or not wanted you to do.
Hmm.
So so again, this is just on me. saying, what identified was scary was someone saying I needed to do something different.
Right.
That was scary because I thought in my head, what I'm doing is 100% correct all the time.
Yeah.
And if someone says that's not, that's scary,
Absolutely. Oh
you
my
know?
gosh, that's one of the scariest things,
Yeah. Being wrong.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
Being wrong
Not
is
not
scary.
even being wrong, the anticipation of being wrong. You could be completely right and it doesn't matter because to take that risk of advocating for not using you as an
Mhm.
example, but
That's
for
okay. Yeah.
ourselves is one of the toughest things. Like I struggle with advocating for myself,
Hmm.
right? But I will advocate for all of my friends, family, colleague, everybody else.
Right.
But when it comes to me, I'm different. I'm
Yeah.
still working on that with their with my therapist.
I think it's natural too. I think it's just,
It is
it's part of who you are. I mean, how many people do you know that you can give advice, that they can give advice to everybody else, but they can't take their own advice? Same situation.
guilty,
Oh, it's totally
guilty,
natural. It's totally
right?
natural.
This just reminds me of, there is a time and a place for us to reflect on what we want out of this job, this career, this situation, this boss. And I think when we start asking ourselves those hard questions, those
Mm.
reflective questions, we can be more empowered to say, for example, like I said, I will not work with a micromanager because I know that is a trigger for me. And I know there will be conflict if someone doesn't trust me enough
Right.
to know that I will deliver high quality work. Then we have a bigger issue than you just watching over me every 15 minutes,
Right.
right? I need my autonomy to figure it out, but I will bring you along for the journey.
Hmm.
And then it's not a conflict, it's not a hard conversation. It's a conversation about this is what I need, this is what you're giving me. How can we figure out a working relationship where we are both happy? And that's initiating those conversations is so scary.
Yeah.
Having someone where you can bounce those conversations with is so helpful. Maybe that's a friend, that maybe that's a colleague, maybe that's a coach, whatever that is.
Hmm.
Desensitizing ourselves a little bit before we start having these conversations is so crucial for
Right.
our
It's just not as
personal.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Like the first time I tried advocating for myself, I was nervous. Like
Yeah.
I was just gone. And thankfully, the person that I was who was my mentor, not my boss, was my mentor, said, "Hey, I got your back, but you have to do this. It does not matter if I agree or disagree with you. This is important to you, so you have to take the step. Whatever the result, you cannot control, right? Whatever happens after, you have no idea. What you know right now, what is within your control, is you can go into that office, and what is within your control is you can say your piece.
Yeah. That's all you can do.
That's it."
But to your point, that in itself is a scary act if you're not used to it, or if you're doing it the incorrect way. The opposite effect would be, just going out there just guns blazing and just being
Exactly.
just aggressive and
Yep.
demand ridden as to what you feel is the way to go,
Mhm.
and just totally getting the wrong tone.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
it's
and you're so right, you're so right, and this reminds me of a story, and I love telling this story of have you ever watched water boil?
well, on occasion. I mean,
Okay.
I have watched water boil on many occasions
Yeah.
because there's nothing else to do, and I was afraid if I don't, then I would get distracted and, like, for
Right?
it was boiling, so yeah, I would watch water boil on many occasions, yes.
So this is from, one of my teachers from, grad school, right? He'd say, like, "Sim, go watch water boil." Like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Stupidest thing. Why? I know it'll boil. It's like, "Yeah, so go watch it." Alright, I go, I get some water, I put it on the pot, I turn the heat up, and I just watch it boil. Like, "Okay, alright." Come back next day, I'm like, "Why did you waste my time?" I was angry. I was angry. Like, I did it because I said I was going to do it, right? But I am angry that you wasted 10 minutes of my time watching the water boil. So they say, like, "Yeah, it was never about the water boiling."
So what was the takeaway? I mean,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what was the takeaway of having that person tell you to watch water boil?
The purpose is when we are boiling, when the water is boiling, when we are boiling with rage, right? With
Right.
anger, right? There was 9 minutes before the boiling point where we could have turned down the heat. We could have removed that pot,
You're right. Took a
right?
minute.
We could have done A, B, C as soon as that water became uncomfortable, right? You could have just told me this. You could have just
Where's the
told me
fun in
this.
that though?
No fun, no fun in that. No fun in that. So they asked, like, so did you need the water to boil for some reason? Like, no, you told me to do this. That's why. What'd you do with the once the water was boiling? Nothing. I just turned it off. Okay. Now you could have put some eggs in there
Right, that's
and
true.
made some
There could have made it a little more eventful and purposeful kind of thing.
right.
It's yeah, I think so.
And they're like, the reason you didn't want the water to boil, the reason you wanted the water to boil is because I said so, and you gave your word. Okay, but you didn't have to let that energy go to waste.
Okay.
You could have made ramen. You could have made ABC to
Right.
use that energy and displace it elsewhere. That would nourish you. It's
Right.
important to understand what will nourish you in those points of heightened anger, emotions, because if you were to put a block of ramen, that boiling point would go down because it's using that energy to cook something for you, right? So he just kept extrapolating more
Sure.
information just to share, like, hey, once we get there, there's multiple ways for us to actually use that energy. We can do something that's nourishing for us, that will be sustaining, or we could just turn it off and that energy is hopefully wasted, right? But when we
Yeah,
turn it off, guess what? Someone can just come by and turn it back on, and you're boiling again
that's
almost
right.
instantly,
That's what I was gonna say. It's
right?
easy to turn back on again.
Exactly, exactly. So learn how to use this energy to sustain parts of you so it reduces that temper, right? I share this story because, for me, I am seen as very calm.
Mm,
And I keep going back to that story
yeah.
of I'm getting heated, my temperature is rising. How can I use this energy to create something that is fulfilling for me?
It's a good way of looking at things. I am terrible at that.
Yeah,
I can assure you I am, it's to your point of sometimes I can be seen as calm, but there are times that my better half will say otherwise, in certain
they know
situations
what's
where it's
best.
like
They know what's
like,
best,
"Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah."
right? Because this goes back to like another. I think it's another story about. It's a horrible story. I don't know why we're talking about this, but you can cook like a live animal, right? If you just slowly warm up the water or something. Have you heard of this? You can
The frog in the pot thing?
frog in a pot. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. I think that's it. If you slowly turn up the heat, it'll just feel more and more comfortable until its demise.
Right.
And this is why it's so important for us to have those objective people. It's like, it's getting too hot. Get out.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying, boil the pot and then put a frog in there or something,
Oh my
and then
gosh.
it
No,
yeah,
no, no.
whole different situation there. Yeah,
No cruelty,
see,
please.
that was kind of the yeah, yeah, I don't think that's, the way to go.
No. But it goes back to one of the earliest things that we talked about is self awareness,
Yeah,
right? You have to recognize what are the signs that your temperature is rising, right? What are the triggers, like we talked about this episode, of what are the triggers that's making that boss scary? What is within our control? What can we do to mitigate this situation? And then what is within our influence? So, for example, one of the bosses, I was ready to report them to HR, the CEO, etc.,
mm,
because it was toxic to not just me, but multiple other people, right? And I went ahead and I talked to my team. It's like, hey, I'm leaving. This is too much for me. Do you want me to say anything to HR, CEO? Because I am comfortable doing that. If you will, because I can't share your story, the impact for you. I can only speak from my experiences,
sure.
right? So this is one of the ways where we can start addressing the scary by taking smaller steps into recognizing where we are, what is within our control. Do we have support from the team, mentor,
Yeah.
And is it safe to speak with HR? Right? If you don't feel safe, that's a whole different story,
Yes.
right? And is it worth the attention of the senior leader, CEO in this case, right? Is it worth it?
Yeah. Well, also, what is the end game of is end game notifying before you leave the I guess the quote unquote security of the team and let them, or is it to let HR know that the leadership is going unchecked
Hmm.
and you're leaving because leadership is going unchecked? And by the way, I don't know what kind of boss you had for you to leave,
Yeah.
but it must have been a serious situation if you had to leave a job. I mean, you're a pretty calm guy, so it must have been like this serious situation that it was just before I leave I'm going to go and I'm going to notify the CEO and HR because this is, this team is getting, just, I'm guessing, emotionally destroyed.
Right. It's again, like you're, you know, you're right. For me, it was beyond my impact. I wasn't
Mm,
the only person that felt scared and constantly under that pressure of, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And it wasn't a momentary experience.
right,
It was a experience that was just slowly warming up with high heat and low heat
right.
throughout, and it was not just impacting me. That's why I felt, because again, I told you, I will advocate for everybody around me.
Except yourself. Yeah, right,
So it came to that point where I already had an out, had an exit. I knew I was going to exit.
right.
So at this point, I could use myself as the example to hopefully support the team in getting better.
Did it work?
We will never I will never share. I will never share. I will never share that. You take it however you will.
Had to ask.
Sometimes
Had to ask.
yeah, of course, of course. I wouldn't, but it has
Mm,
worked with my clients. And this is why it's important to recognize, is it the boss? Is it the department? Is it the organization?
right,
Where does it stop?
right.
And what is your threshold for carrying this burden, right? I am checking the time. We are almost at 55 minutes. This was a this was a long discussion.
It was. It was. It was. But I think there are some good points to take away
Mhm.
from all this. Yeah, so it's definitely opened my eyes in a couple of concepts about what defines scary and how you can deal with it moving forward.
Yeah, no, when we're scared, even when we're kids, the fear of a monster under the bed, or like the branches moving or the light turned off, we had support, hopefully,
Right. Yeah.
nightlight, or our parents might check under the bed. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
we're all clear.
Right.
That security came from trust. I trust my parents to check under the bed and tell me we're okay.
Right.
I trust what I can see because the nightlight is on,
Right.
right? So whenever I talk to individuals that have scary bosses, I want to address, where is the trust broken and is it repairable? And one of the key components that they need to recognize is, do I have the energy to repair it? And
True.
that's a different conversation for another episode.
Yes. This is a good point.
Right? So this is our okay, I'm blurry again.
You're
All
blurry
right.
again. Sorry.
I'm just like the who is it? Loch Ness monster or
Yeah,
bear or
totally.
Bigfoot,
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're just like you're just like a Loch Ness monster, Sim.
right? Oh my gosh. Or was it Bigfoot? Like you have pictures, but they're all blurry.
Well, it's totally Loch Ness monster.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Bigfoot's real, so it's
Oh,
that's why
yeah.
it's Loch Ness
Yeah.
monster.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes sense. Oh my gosh. All right. Thank you for joining us. We will see
absolutely.
you in our
Thanks.
next episode.
Yep. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for joining us and being part of the conversation. We hope this episode has given you some insight on your journey to a more balanced and fulfilling career. Please find Beyond the 9 to 5, a balanced career on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. Thank you for joining us.